Hi, as promised, I'd like to answer some of your questions that you left on the James English podcast. Ones I'll answer today, I'll start with Tim's question, and he wanted to know basically about the One Postcode, how that started, because he was a serving prisoner at HMP Belmarsh actually, when I brought the idea originally to him. And yeah, how it started was because of the amounts of violence with young people in the prison. As an older prisoner I was in now, another fellow prisoner, similar sort of age, Mumbles. We were both category prisoners at the time, and it's quite frustrating being a category prisoner. There are lots of restrictions, obviously, you have on you, opposed to regular prisoners. And one of the biggest issues, obviously, that we all had, every time the bell goes, we're all locked down. So it's quite frustrating, you know, to be in that environment. And a lot of this was caused by the gang altercations, you know, and what it seemed that was young people coming in, they were affiliated to postcode gangs on the outside. When they arrived in prison on various charges, mainly murder, a lot of them were joint enterprise actually, they'd arrive in the prison and they'd either be confronted by their enemies or be in fear of being confronted by their enemies, because of course postcode gangs naturally have issues with numerous different postcodes and numerous different gangs, literally one on every corner. And it was a problem, it was constant, you know, the bell was going off every 2 minutes where there were fights. Some serious injuries were caused, not just to prisoners, but also to staff, trying to break up some of the issues. And we thought, you know, is there any way around this? You know, is it some sort of logical thinking that might be able to change things slightly? And I was a listener at the time, and we used to go to what we call safe custody meetings, where you look at the stats and see what problems, issues, people with, you know, self-harming, you know, hangings, all kinds of stuff, you know. And you looked at those figures and the assaults was massive. And most of those assaults were coming down to notifications with the gangs. So I started to speak to the governor at the time. She was called Beverly Clark, very nice lady. Had worked her up for an officer, so she knew what it was about really. And we started to, you know, talk to her regularly and ask her, you know, if you would look at us trying to do something about it, you know, and create a course, a program or an incentive that could probably help, you know, change things a little bit. Eventually, after about 6-7 months of, you know, constant wearing her down, and admittedly she helped us, you know, achieve meetings. We had a number of meetings, you know, putting together guys who we thought would be good to be involved in the course. They even went as far as to allow us to have meetings, you know, without even officers present, which was an amazing thing considering, but she knew that confidentiality was very important for a lot of inmates, you know. And she allowed us to basically come up with an idea, which developed over a period of about 6-7 months over a series of meetings. And those ideas were basically to find inmates that we knew who were on the wings, who were doing big sentences, most of them, who were affiliated gangs on the outside, but had kind of realised, you know, it wasn't really worth it for what they were doing with their lives, what they'd done with their lives. But they had made those mistakes, obviously, and for them it was a little too late to turn back, but they were committed to try to change things. And we pulled together a group of mentors. I think it was between 8 and 12 initially for the first group, who were on different wings, different house blocks in Belmarsh. And we sat down, we thought up some ideas, and a few ideas which came out of that would be that a lot of guys who come into the prison don't say they're part of a gang. That's the first thing they do, because they're asked by an officer. In their mind, they think if they tell the prison officer they're part of a gang, when they go to court to get sentenced, it'll be a bigger sentence, and they're probably right. So he said, you know, we want to have a spotter downstairs who could sit in the suite just like a listener does, and when they arrive in custody, you could speak to them and say to them, actually, no, you're part of a gang, you know, but if you sign a compact, it won't go to the security, it won't go to the police, we'll just know you're part of a gang, and we'll put you into a wing where there isn't going to be conflict. And during that course of that week, you know, we'd arrange a sit down, which would be mediation basically between the person you have conflict with and two mentors from different areas who could hopefully sit down and put together a structure that you guys could live with. There was a carrot and stick approach put into place, which meant, you know, the benefits of signing a compact, you'd get extra gym sessions, and, you know, there'd be some incentives for you. And for the guys who were the mentors, you know, it meant that hopefully their journey through prison wouldn't be so bad, and they could hopefully get placements into prisons throughout their sentence, which would be, you know, more favourable, where they could learn skills and they could progress during their sentence planning, you know. And the course was introduced about 8 months in. we wanted to bring in someone who'd had experience in mentoring. So I made a suggestion to bring in someone I knew and had worked with previously, and they were brought in, and a short mentoring scheme was put in place just to basically give the guys a rough understanding of certain things. But most of the prisoners had already had a good understanding, because during prison you do a lot of courses and you get to do and understand things. Peer mentoring you don't get to do until you get into, more or less a CCAT. That was where I done my MVQs in peer mentoring. But you do listening and stuff like that, victim awareness, which are all pretty reasonably good courses that let you understand that pathway. And it was introduced, after a short training session, the guys were given T-shirts. Peacock's Gym got involved, and they furnished us with T-shirts, and they put on additional stuff, talks, stuff like that, were brought into the prison as incentives. An amazing group of guys were put out as the first, the first set of mentors, and the course was a success. The violence in the prison reduced rapidly. It wasn't an issue, no more visitors coming in and having to get kicked out of their visits early because the bell was going off. Staff were freer to move around the prison, because staff obviously had to, 2 officers had to escort a prisoner who was on the conflict list up and down all day long. That was no longer needed, so more activities were available in the prison. And all round, it was a huge success. Well over 80% of all the conflicts which were mediated were maintained. There were no other issues with those, and the course ran really well. It's not something we do anymore. AP Foundation has stopped offering One Postcode, because obviously things have changed a lot since then. Knife crime has become a massive issue with gangs. Also, obviously, county lines is a huge issue as well. So to make things obviously more up to date and more modern, we've developed a series of courses. Actually, one of the courses will be the Developers Awakening, which is actually one of the original guys who was involved as an inmate, who helped put together the One Postcode. He's been writing that. And also we have, a course in terms of directly dealing with knife crime, and also courses directly dealing with county lines, as well as, incorporating those things and dovetailing them into all the issues that postcode gangs do, obviously, the signals, the grooming, all that kind of stuff. So I encourage you to look at our website, encourage you to look at some of our courses. If we can help you in your community, or, if you are in a prison system and you're looking at this video, I encourage you to speak to your governor, speak to your safe custody unit, and look at these courses, call us in, find out about them and see if they can work for you. And I wish everyone all the best today. Have a wonderful day, and encourage you just to keep up the fight, because, we're winning.